Now we're marveling all over again. The letter was at least 10 years old. It happens to fall out that day, and then we look at each other. Who decided to rearrange this room? Why are we schlepping furniture? Nobody knew. Nobody knew. So I want to tell you a story, which is the best way to communicate ideas. It was sometime in the early 70s. I came into New York from Minnesota, and I walked up to the offices next to 770, next to the Rebbe's shul. And my brother and some other guys who worked there were rearranging a room that was a stock room, and they're turning it into an office. So they're schlepping furniture and boxes. So there was one file cabinet that was being wheeled out of the room. The drawer slipped open, and a manila folder fell out. We pick it up. It's got a single letter in it on stationery from a doctor in Manhattan, a Dr. Jacobson. A letter to the Rebbe on his stationery, and the Rebbe's answer in the margins of the stationery. That's how the Rebbe would handle the correspondence, hundreds of letters a day. He would write his answer right on your letter. But he would write it in Hebrew, which is more concentrated than English. And if it needed to be translated into English, the secretary would translate it. So we sat down to read the letter. Dr. Jacobson writes to the Rebbe, "My friend, a wealthy man, wanted to write a Sefer Torah. He hired a scribe, and he had him write a Torah. When the Torah was almost complete, you make a whole ceremony, the introduction of a new Torah. So you leave the last letters blank, you make a big party, and at the party you fill in those last letters. It's a big celebration with a chuppah. You carry the Torah to the shul where it's going to be." So this man, Mr. Shapiro, asked Dr. Jacobson if the party could be held in the doctor's apartment in Manhattan, which was larger than this guy's apartment. So the celebration for the completion of the Torah was in Dr. Jacobson's apartment. One of the guests who was invited was a young woman, and she suffered an aneurysm and died on the spot. So Dr. Jacobson is writing, asking the Rebbe, how do I explain this? He says, my faith is okay. I'm fine. My belief, I'm fine. But people are asking me, especially students, how does this happen? You come to a party of a Torah and you die? So you know when somebody says, I'm okay, but my friend wants to know? His second question is, why did it happen in my apartment? So he's not so fine. He's a little spooked. The Rebbe's answer was in brief points. We were absolutely floored. Listen, I'll just tell you and you decide yourself. The Rebbe writes like this. First of all, why do human beings think they can understand God? Point number 2. The Torah tells us to try to understand God, so we have to try. Point number 3. Every human being born into this world is given a certain amount of time. The angel announces 40 days before conception, how long you're going to live, down to the minute. The angel announces exactly when you're going to die. Long life, short life, whatever it is, it's programmed. Very, very rarely can a person do something so horrendous that his life is cut short. Very rare. People think, oh, you sinned, you're going to die. No, no, no. If the angel announces a certain amount of years, that's what's going to be. You would have to do something so awful to change the divine plan. And very seldom can you do something so magnificent that years are added to your life. You live the lifespan that you're given at birth. When the time comes, it can happen in many different circumstances, some better, some not so better. For example, a person is traveling abroad where nobody knows him and he passes away. Nobody cares, nobody's concerned. That's not so good. You pass away at a ripe old age in your bed, surrounded by your family, much better. In fact, those last moments when the person knows that he's dying, every detail becomes magnified and significant and meaningful. So this girl, who was an observant, personally observant girl, you have no idea, the Rebbe says, how significant it was for her to know that she is dying, her life is ending, in a room that has a mezuzah on the door. And the mezuzah says, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Because she couldn't say it. That her life ended together with the conclusion of a Torah is actually a great honor. So what should you tell your friends and the students? That they just saw a beautiful example of divine providence. In fact, the Rebbe says, according to the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, why did Mr. Shapiro suddenly decide to write a Torah in the first place? So we're sitting there marveling. What were we thinking? People get outraged. She comes to a party of the conclusion of a Torah and she dies? That's not right. Really, what do you think? She died because she was there? Like this was a punishment for her being there? What were we thinking? It just so happened that there was a chassid from Eretz Yisrael, an older chassid, came to New York for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. On the eve of Yom Kippur, they asked him to open the Ark for Kol Nidre. He was on his way to the Ark in 770, and he had a heart attack and died. On Yom Kippur, in Shul, on his way to the Ark, all the guys his age were so jealous. How did he arrange that? How did he pull that off? Because when you come to heaven, the first thing they ask you is, where are you coming from? What were you doing? I was with the Rebbe in Shul, 770. It was Yom Kippur. I was on my way to the Ark. Not bad. Could be a lot more embarrassing than that. There was another chassid who lived in Brooklyn who died in 770 on Simchas Torah during the dancing. And all the old guys said, that's even better. he danced right into heaven. I don't get the impression that people die in 770, like a dangerous place to go. So the circumstances of birth, every detail is significant. the circumstances of death. Every detail is significant. So instead of thinking, now why would she die at a party? No. If you got to go, you should go like a mensch, under the best of circumstances. Anyway, the Rebbe says, your second question, why did it happen in your apartment? Guess what the Rebbe said? You're a doctor. What happened in your apartment? You're a doctor. Usually you take care of patients in the hospital. Well, this time it happened in your apartment, but it was perfect. You're a doctor. Right? It's not the end of the story. We were sitting there, stunned, marveling at the clarity of vision. It's almost like the Rebbe could tell you what God is thinking. The phone rings. We answer the phone. There's a rabbi who is in a panic. He wants us to take a note to the Rebbe to ask the Rebbe what he should do. He is celebrating the bar mitzvah of his son in the Midwest. And his father, the bar mitzvah boy's grandfather, came in from Israel and had a heart attack during the bar mitzvah and died. And they're in the middle of the bar mitzvah. And he doesn't know what to do. Call it off, tell everybody to go home? What do I do? What do I tell people? He's in a panic. We said, you got a pencil? Take this down. We dictated the answer, word for word. And he went back and he read it to the guests at the party, and they were blown away. Now we're marveling all over again. The letter was at least 10 years old. It happens to fall out that day. The guy calls and needs to hear what is written in that letter. Come on. This is too good. And then we look at each other. According to the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, who decided to rearrange this room? Why are we schlepping furniture? Nobody knew. Nobody knew. That room never became an office. It was just for that letter to fall out so that we could read it to this. So when you see divine providence with such clarity, that means you understand God. You can think the way He's thinking. That comes from learning Chassidus. And will that change your life? Absolutely. You see a whole new world. We have a Sunday night program for VIPs that you might be interested in. It's informal, it's questions and answers, it's conversation. It's really relaxed, it's really pleasant, enjoyable, informative, and kind of community-like. It's a Sunday night program, there's a Wednesday morning program for the VIPs, and there's a Wednesday night program. All of it just conversation, casual, laid back, unscripted. So join us, take a look, click the link below and see which of the three suits you best, and join us for some enjoyable conversation.